Audu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Dear believers, I greet you with the universal greeting of peace. Assalamu alaikum. And I greet you with the greeting, the celebratory greeting of the moment, Ramadan Mubarak. I pray that you all are well. I am Imam Jamal and I will be giving tonight's Ramadan talk. We'll only go about 30 minutes, inshallah, so that we can prepare ourselves to break fast. So, the topic I'm going to discuss, we're going to go back to, I think it was day 13 when we were looking at the story of the Prophet Yusuf, or we were in the Surah Yusuf. However, what I want to discuss will be dealing with the Prophet Jacob. And the way we're going to approach this is going to be a little different, but inshallah, as we work our way through this, we will see the benefit that the Quran has for us, and this prophetic model, not just necessarily with Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings be upon him, but also with the other prophets of our Creator. So, as we know, the story of Yusuf, he was a young man. He gave his father, and I'm going to go back and forth between Jacob. I probably won't use Yaqub. I don't use that often, but I'm going to probably jump between Yusuf and Joseph, just because that's how I typically talk. So as we know about Joseph, he was a young man and he had a vision that he gave his father, and his dad told him, Jacob told him, don't tell your brothers because they will become jealous of you. And so he didn't. And so as time went on, Jacob began to grow closer and have a stronger affinity for Joseph, and and he would treat him differently. And so the brothers got jealous of this. The brothers are jealous of what was going on. And so the story goes that one decided, well, we're going to go ahead and kill him. But there was another brother who said, we're not going to kill him. We're going to throw him in the well, and somebody will come pick him up, and that'll be the end of that. And then our father, seeking the approval of their father, the approval of Jacob. And so as this was going on, Jacob knew that when he was going, the brothers were going to take him out. He said, "Hey, and I'm paraphrasing here, but you can read the story in the Quran, Surah 12, Surah Yusuf." And so he's like, "Okay, is he going to be okay? What are you going to do?" Any parent would, concerning their child. And so he let them go. He let them go, and sure enough, they threw Yusuf in the well. They came back with fake blood on him and told him that the wolf ate him. And so this troubled Jacob greatly. And as the story progresses, we find Joseph in Egypt, and he was picked up by the Aziz, and so he goes through some issues with his wife, and that story is all listed in Surah 12, and it's there for you to read. But that's not where I want to stop. Moving forward, Joseph is put in jail. He spends some time there. He's only released after someone that was in jail with him remembered him having the ability to translate or to explain dreams. And so he was released shortly thereafter and placed over the storehouses, because the dream that he interpreted had to do with a famine. And like I said previously, that's all listed, but that's not where we want to stop in the story. So time progresses. Joseph's brothers come to town seeking to purchase food, sell their goods, just normal market transactions. And so now Joseph knows who his who his brothers are, but they don't know who he is because it's been some time. And so now he has a plan. He's telling them, okay, well, I know you have a younger brother. Um, it was in the transaction. It's listed in the Quran. He ended up pleading with them, and not necessarily pleading with them, but talking them into bringing their brother back. And so the brothers knew that, well, we can't take him because our father, Jacob, he'll be sad. And he went on and on about how their father would feel. But they ended up agreeing, and then they went back home. And now they're talking to Jacob and telling him the story of what transpired while they were at the market. And so they said, okay, well, we need to bring our younger brother here with us, so we can go back. And Jacob, he had already experienced the loss of one son by going away with him, and he brought this up, and he was concerned, like, like your brother the last time, and they did their best to try and reassure him. He was not actually believing them, but he let the youngest son go anyway. Now they make their way back to the market. Now this is still going to be a conversation about Jacob. We're just building up this story. So they go back to the market, and Yusuf tells his brother, he says, "Don't worry, just roll with me on this." And that's paraphrasing. They didn't say roll with me in Egypt back then. And so he tells his brothers, okay, he comes out with a cup and he sticks it in the bag of the youngest brother. And then he says, the Aziz's cup is missing. The ruler's cup is missing. And the brothers say, we wouldn't take it. He offers a reward. And he said, no, the brothers said, no, we wouldn't take it. We didn't do that. And so then he says, well, whoever took it, they're going to have to stay and be a prisoner. And so they started searching the bags. They're going through the bags, and they find it in the youngest brother's bag. Now remember, Yusuf told his younger brother, just be cool, don't worry about it. And so he said he has to stay with me. And so the brothers were really messed up at this point, because they already knew that their father did not want them bringing their brother to the market. And they had made these promises and pleaded with him, and he reluctantly did. They then he had to go back. And so they went back home to Jacob. And so here's where we begin this conversation. So when they get back to the Quran in Surah 12, they go back and they're talking to him about what happened, talking to Jacob about what happened. And so Jacob says, and I'm gonna read the English translation, but we will look at a few Arabic words. Jacob said, Jacob said, nay, but you yourselves have contrived a story good enough for you, so patience is most fitting for me. Maybe Allah will bring them back all to me in the end, for he indeed is full of knowledge and wisdom. That's 12:83. 12:84. This is where we're really going to look into. 12:84 says, and he turned away from them, and he said, how great is my grief for Joseph. And his eyes became white with sorrow, and he fell into a silent melancholy. Now during Ramadan, as we're reading, depending on our fluency, depending on our familiarity with the Quran, we read at different paces. We read at different speeds. And so as I'm reading this, I'm going through it. I'm going through it. I'm like, okay, yeah, I know this story, but I'm still making sure that I read it, but I know this story. I get to 24, and the line says, he fell into a silent melancholy. Now my Arabic isn't that strong, so I was concerned. I was like, well, what's Arabic for melancholy? That caught my attention. I didn't hear that term used typically in translation. So the term, and I've read this translation, Yusuf Ali, I've read this hundreds of times, but this time, for whatever reason, the word melancholy jumped out to me. And so when we look at the word melancholy in English, it means sadness. It means sadness with no cause. Sadness with no cause. And so in my mind, I'm like, wait a second. How can you say melancholy and silence with no cause, but clearly Jacob is upset because not one but two of his sons were taken by their brothers and did not return. So melancholy could not be the word, could not be the proper translation. And so I was like, well, let me see what's the Arabic word for that. And so I looked up the Arabic word, and while I was doing that, I started to see, okay, well, they use grief twice. Grief is used twice when he says, and he turned away from them. How great is my grief for Joseph? In some translation, it says, alas, my grief for Joseph. But this one said, how great is my grief for Joseph? And then it says his eyes became white with sorrow. And some translation says his eyes became white with grief. And so I'm like, okay, well, this is probably going to be the same wording. It's probably going to be the same word used twice in this verse. And so I pushed melancholy to the back of my mind. It was still there because I really wanted to know what melancholy, the Arabic equivalent for melancholy, was. So I looked at the first time that grief was used. And so it was yasafa. Yasafa. It means, oh my grief. It comes from the root word asifa. And that means to be sad or grieved, but not just sad, also angry. Now my mind's working. I'm like, now this makes more sense than melancholy, because he just got told his other son did not return. So sadness, yes, but not only sadness. The second word was huzni, and that comes from the root word hazana. And so hazana means to grieve, to be sad, but this one does not have any anger involved. So in my mind, I'm still like, okay, there's this angry sad the first time, and this when he says, oh, my grief for how great is my grief for Joseph. So my sadness, my anger, how great is that? So he's feeling these emotions. He's going through this process of where he's experiencing sadness and he's experiencing grief. He's experiencing sadness and anger at the same time, and rightfully so. He was just told that his sons returned without the other brother, and it brought that back up. So in the military, they talk about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And so in this instance, this is what Jacob was feeling. He was feeling a little PTSD because it brought back up these feelings. He didn't even reference the son that was just missing, that didn't come back. He was talking about the other one, the one that he did not have any idea of where he was. At least he knew somewhat of where the youngest son was. And so the next time it's used, it said, and his eyes became white with sorrow. So his eyes became white with this sadness, with this grief. Not angry, but just grief. Now, now let's jump on the melancholy. So the Arabic word that's used is kazamun. Let me make sure I'm telling you that right. Kazimun. Kazimun is the word that's used, and it comes from the word kazama. And and that means to shut, to stop, to suppress one's anger, one who is grieving inwardly and in silence. So he's suppressing his anger. So the initial response to hearing about his son not coming back was these feelings of things that happened in the past, a situation that he could not control that happened anyway. He was sad and angry. And that was brought on by another situation that he could not control. And so when we look at this sadness and this sadness, well, let's address the anger first. The anger comes from, I let them go. I let my sons take them. I let them leave with my two boys and they didn't return with them. I knew something was going on, but I let them go. I'm mad at myself for that. I'm mad at them because they took them and didn't bring them back. So I'm angry, but I'm sad because I cannot control that situation. I cannot control a situation that makes me angry. So it makes me sad. I'm working through a process. It makes me sad. And his eyes became white with grief, white with sorrow, sad because of this situation. His reality was changed. Everything he saw was different now. Everything that he saw from Joseph leaving was different. It's different now. It's blurry. Everything is a haze. He can't think rationally. Mentally, he's going through these changes. His reality is affecting his outlook on life. It's changing his perception. His eyes were white with sorrow. So now Kazamun, he fell into a silent melancholy. He suppressed his anger. He suppressed it. He held it back. He didn't let it out. This is Jacob. Jacob that lost two sons, who lost control of his situation, lost control of his reality. What he knew as his reality one day, the next day was completely different. Sad and angry at the same time. So when we think about this sadness and anger, we can't help but think about everybody that's experiencing this coronavirus, right? We can't help but think about our situation. We can't help but think about we are in a place where our entire reality has changed, and we're sad and we're angry. We're gonna deal with this suppression of anger that Jacob did as we further discuss the prophetic model or the prophetic actions of how to deal with these things. But this is our situation right now. I've been in the house now I've gone out here and there, but not really, but for like almost 8 weeks now. And most of you, it's probably the same. Many have lost loved ones. There are parents that cannot go to the hospital to see their child that may possibly die. Their reality is changed. Eyes are white with grief. Sad and angry. Angry that I can't do anything about it. Sad because my child is in the hospital, possibly dying. My family member is possibly dying. I can't express this feeling because I have no control. I have absolutely none. So I'm sad and angry at my situation. I'm depressed. And so as we look at Jacob, he was working through the cycle of grief. No, he didn't deal with denial, but because he initiated the conversation with faith. But when you stop this cycle of grief, when you stop this movement and we'll get to the last stage of acceptance, when you stop this cycle of grief, you start to act out on your own. And what do we see? We see domestic violence going up. We see child abuse going up. We see all these things increasing because people have stopped this cycle and decided to deal with it on their own. They decided to focus on these things on their own and not make the necessary personality adjustments. We've all been locked in together. And what does Allah say? It is a part of the mercy of Allah that you deal gently with them. It's not your mercy, it's a part of Allah's mercy. It's a part of Allah's mercy that you deal gently with them. You're all in here going through it together. You're all experiencing this same situation you can't control. You don't know when this virus is going to be gone. You don't know when there's going to be a cure. So you're sad, you're angry, you're building up all this tension and you're snapping on each other. We're in the middle of Ramadan, and I know it's Muslims cussing each other out. But that's not the prophetic model. Jacob turned away. He turned away and thought to himself how great was his grief, this sadness, this anger. And so as we move on, 12 and 85, it says, the sons now they're jumping back in. And we have these feelings. We may have had a bad day at work in the middle of a pandemic. If we still have a job, may Allah continue to bless us and bless you if you're in that position. Or you may not have a job. You may have gotten laid off. And now you're turning inward to this sadness and this grief and this anger. And somebody says, well, go do this or go do that, or you didn't cut the grass, or you didn't put these dishes up, or you didn't wash that. You're angry. Now you wanna lash out. Now you want to talk back. Now you want to create a bigger situation because you haven't fully processed to work through this grief process. And so the sons did the same thing to Jacob. They said, by Allah, never will you cease to remember Joseph until you reach the last extremity of illness or until you die. So they're back to thinking about themselves. They're like, well, you won't stop thinking about Joseph until you die. What about us? Look at me. Feel sorry for us. We lost a brother. We're important too. Sad and angry. After this expression of sadness and anger that Jacob was feeling, his sons then antagonize him, but he does something different. Kazamun, he suppressed it. He suppressed this anger, and not the suppression that a lot of us have where we suppress things and we bury it and we never address it. We never address these issues that we have. Mental health is a serious thing, especially in this time. We never address these things. We never address these issues that we have to make us better people, to make us work through these situations. We never address it. We just let it go. And it festers and it festers and it festers and it festers and it grows, and boom. Now you're smacking your wife. Now you're smacking your kids. Now you have the police in your life. So when we talk about suppression, we're not like just bury it and don't bring it up and don't work through it. It's a process. Now let's get to acceptance. Jacob says in 12 and 86, I only complain of my distraction and anguish to Allah, and I know from Allah that which you know not. So sometimes we have to be like Jacob. We have to learn how to compartmentalize things. And it's not compartmentalize things kind of the same way of just pushing it to the side. There are things, there may be a box of things, a mental box of things that I know that I can handle, inshallah. Everything is inshallah. There's a box of things that I know that I can handle. There's a box of things that I know that I possibly need some assistance with. And that may be looking back into the Quran, that may be looking at the life of the Prophet, peace be upon him, that may be turning to friends, it may be taking shura, maybe consultation. There may be these things that I need help with that I can't do on my own. And then there's this box where I say, Allah, this is your box. All these things in here are for you. I can't deal with it. I can't get any assistance that's suitable for my situation. So I put it in a box and I give it all to Allah. And that's what Jacob did. Jacob said, I only complain of my distraction and anguish to Allah, and I know from Allah that which you know not. So he turned away. He turned away while in this moment of sadness, while in this moment of anger, he turned away while he was grieving and his vision was blurry and he was in a situation that he couldn't change. What do we do when we watch TV? We see the news. We see politics. We see the death toll. Sad and angry, some of us, because we can't do anything about it, because we can't change the situation. Sad and angry, we turn away. Our reality is cloudy. The things that we once knew to be reality are no longer reality anymore. Our vision is white with grief, white with sorrow. It's blurred. Nothing looks the same anymore. Nothing feels the same anymore. It's different now. Suppress it. Suppress it how Jacob suppressed it. Suppress it using the prophetic model of Jacob, the model that he provided. Put it in a box, put it in a dua, put it in a prayer, put it in sajda, put it and leave it for Allah. The saying is Allahu Alam. Allah knows best. They didn't say Allahu Alam and there's sheikhs in them. They said Allahu Alam. So put it to Allah. Leave it for Allah to deal with. We know as Muslims, we always say, oh Allah, please do not allow me to act on my own. Make of my life what you want it to be, what you desire it to be. That's what we say. That's how we should live. And as we move forward in this month of Ramadan, let's focus on that. Let's focus on how can we be so giving in charity that we give our problems to Allah. Allah doesn't need your charity. Fasting is for him. Everything else is for you. But in this instance, let's be generous. Let's give this to Allah. Let's not hold these things in that creates mental health issues for ourselves. Let's not create situations where there's domestic violence going on, where there's child abuse going on. Let's fix those issues. Let's address those things by giving this hurt, this pain that of situations that we cannot control. Let's give it all to Allah. Dear believers, dear Muslims, my fasting brothers and sisters, it is almost time for us to break the fast. And I'm excited. We have made it through into this second phase of Ramadan, the time of forgiveness. And we're preparing to go into the days of seeking repentance and seeking refuge. And I pray that Allah keeps you in good health. I pray that Allah accepts your fast. I pray that Allah is pleased with all of us. And I pray that, as they say in the Quran, the believers will certainly win through. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.